Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We are on February 15th, 2023, just about to begin spring training in another week. I've done a little bit of action since our last episode to potentially start positioning the team for the future, which is not too far away. We've made a number of minor league contract offers, generally to people with strong leadership, strong work ethic. People who also have a little bit of potential to improve and can kind of give us some depth in the minor league system and be a good influence on the players around them. So made a number of minor league contract offers. And then we've also offered minor league contracts to a bunch of prominent catchers who are still kind of out there. Anthony Bemboom, Austin Hedges, Tucker Barnhart, Travis d'Arnaud, among others. Some of them are probably going to be insulted by these minor league offers, but even if we only get one of them, it's another good veteran defensive catcher in many cases with a good personality that can hopefully help improve our results in the minors and help kind of develop the players around them that they're working with. So that's kind of the only one of two actually changes we made, even though we're still on the same day as when we finished our last episode. Can see our key signings from free agency, Kiki Hernandez and Jock Peterson, who are both going to be competing for time in the corner outfield spots with a couple of holdovers from last year. And then we also added the starting pitcher, Joe Ross, who hopefully will be heading up our rotation in the next season. The other change that we did make, no surprise to those who have watched, but I always like trying to get my personnel as good as possible. And we've made an offer to bring on Travis Lee as our scout. Lonnie Goldberg has 2 years left. He is a good, solid scout, good at scouting major leaguers, minor leaguers, and internationals, excellent with amateurs, and he's highly favored tools. But Travis Lee was out there, and you can see he's outstanding with major leaguers, excellent with minor leaguers, outstanding with international scouting, and excellent with amateurs, and also highly favors tools. So we've made an offer to see if we can bring Travis Lee on board as our scouting director. Other than that, as we get ready for spring training to start in just over a week, the only other things we're going to be kind of thinking about is training up a few of our players to play those corner outfield spots potentially. As I mentioned, we signed Jock Peterson and we signed Kiki Hernandez, who could be competing for corner outfield spots. Hernandez bats right, Peterson bats left-handed. We have holdovers from last year, Kyle Isbell, who's a lefty, and Juan Yepez, who's a righty. And then we added Eddie Leonard, who bats right-handed in the Rule 5 draft. And then we still have Vinny Pasquantino, who's a left-handed batter. The thought is we can potentially train Pasquantino to be a not great left fielder, and we can potentially try to train Eddie Leonard to be a average-ish left fielder, probably a bit below average right fielder with his only average arm. But, we've got 3 left-handed batters, 3 right-handed batters that we've been talking about there, and hopefully we can piece together some platoons at left field and right field. Some of those players will get time at DH, and some of them may even play some other positions. But hopefully we can piece together a little more offense with all of those interchangeable parts that we've either brought on board or had on the team from last season by doing a little work in spring training to make a couple of those bats more versatile defensively. So that's kind of the big picture plan as we start approaching spring training here. And one final thing we're going to try to do in the coming weeks is see if we can lock up reigning American League Rookie of the Year and AL All-Star Bobby Witt to a contract that maybe buys out a couple of his free agent years in addition to all of his arbitration years. You can see with his projected salaries for the next 6 seasons, he's expected to make about $42.8 million over the next 6 years. You'd have to think that at the very least he's a $20+ million player and possibly more than that. So that would put us up into the neighborhood of around 85 million or so for 8 years. If we can lock him up for anything, in the neighborhood of an average of about $10 million a year for the next 8 years, think we absolutely should do that. As I mentioned, he's coming off a Rookie of the Year season. Really nice defensive profile for a third baseman. Could also play second or short for us in a pinch. Our scout loves him. Extremely productive last year in his rookie season, and his batting rating suggests that he's going to be a big-time player for us for the extended future, hopefully, if he remains healthy. So going to see if maybe we can structure something to sign Bobby Witt for the long term and get him locked up, similar to what we've done with Nick Pratto and Nico Horner, as well as Nicky Lopez since we took over the team. And the good news is that Bobby Witt is also thinking a long-term contract like we are. The bad news is he's looking to average about $20 million a year over the next decade. So we absolutely can get him locked up, but it doesn't look like he's really going to offer much of a discount. Actually, he's looking for more than he's going to be making in arbitration, or more that right now he's projected to make in arbitration in every season. So certainly no discount at all if we sign him to this contract that he's looking for. We're going to come back to him with something shorter and less expensive. Hard to imagine he's going to go for it, but got to give it a try. So we're going to make an offer to Bobby Witt. I can't imagine he's going to accept it. As I said, he's looking for a 10-year extension with us and an average of close to $20 million a year. We are offering him 9 years at an average of $14.4 million, so significantly less than he's looking for. Trying to have it a lot next year, then a very manageable amount for the bulk of the contract, and then a team option with a big number at the end. I don't think there's any way he's going to go for this. Hopefully it doesn't make him too angry. And we've front-loaded it so much that the owner is not happy with the way we did that. So it was a little too front-loaded. Actually, they only changed it a little bit, increased it a little bit. That's still essentially the same thing we offered, so let's see what he thinks of it. Yeah, salary's not going to get it done, but he's down to a $15 million average over 8 years. And I messed up with my math a little bit because obviously he's locked up for this season already, so 7 years, over the next 7 years, we're probably going to be paying him in the neighborhood of $85 million. But that's not an unreasonable request from him, around $15 million a year for 8 years. We might be able to do something here. I just would like to structure it a little differently and front load it a little bit. But maybe we can actually get a deal done with Bobby Witt Jr., which would be huge for this franchise. All right, so Bobby Witt Jr. is now looking for $15.6 million a year over 8 years. We've got a deal together here that's averaging $14.5 million a year over those 8 years. Big number in year 1 and then a big number in year 8. But it would buy out his last 5 years of arbitration, plus give us 3 years of him at free agency. We're within $1.1 million annually of what he's asking for. Maybe there's a chance. No, that didn't make him happy. Now he wants more. Although he's looking for 10 years now at $18.8 a year. maybe we can meet something in the middle. I would just hate to make him angry, although the good thing is that we've got him locked up for so many years that hopefully after a few years, if he's angry with us, we'll have another shot at trying to renegotiate with him. All right, we're going to come back to Bobby Witt Jr. He's saying he wants about $18.9 million a year for 10 years. We're going to offer him over 16.5 for 9 years. Still a player option the last season. Well, he'd do an 8-year around 17.5. We're not making great progress with him, and we're getting close to making him angry, so we've got to come up with something good now for this last attempt. Otherwise, we're just going to have to move on for the year. All right, our last try with him is $16 million a year for the next 8 years. He's looking for about 17.5 for 8 years. Sounds reasonable. He'll get back to us. At least we didn't make him angrier. But we'll see if maybe we can get Bobby Witt Jr. locked up for the long term. 8 years, $128 million. He's thinking about it. Not a huge discount potentially, given that obviously his contracts for the next 5 seasons, when we still have him under his initial contract and or arbitration, are going to be lower than he could make on the free market. But if we're able to buy out 3 years of free agency and get him into his 30s, would be a potentially franchise-changing move for the Royals if he bites on this offer. And Travis Lee likes our offer to join us as a scout. Obviously, the big offer that we're waiting to hear back from is what Bobby Witt Jr. is going to think about that big extension we've offered him. And we have locked up Travis Lee as our new scout, so very happy to have him on board with his particularly outstanding skill in international scouting. And we look at our front office now, we've still got money left, and we've bolstered our scouting budget, bolstered our development budget. So hopefully having an outstanding international scout along with a good-sized scouting budget will enable him to make some pretty interesting finds for us as far as international players that we can get signed. And big news for the Royals, we have signed that 8-year extension with Bobby Witt Jr. Fans are ecstatic. First day of spring training today, and we've got Bobby Witt Jr. locked up for an 8-year extension for $128 million. Really excited to have this done with him and Prado from last year's rookie class locked up now. The last guy that we'll need to focus on at some point is MJ Melendez, but clearly Bobby Witt Jr. was the key one to get signed up. You can see going to be $23 million next year, which will be a big salary for us to pay. Obviously, the Royals aren't going to be too active in free agency this coming off season with that big contract going on the books, but then a manageable number. And for the last, or like the 5th, 6th, 7th years of this contract, definitely going to have him less than we would have been paying him in arbitration and or those free agency years by paying him a lot more these next few seasons. And then he's got the big player option at the end. We'll see whether he opts out of that. I would think that at that point, $27 million. A lot depends on how his career goes. If he's doesn't meet expectations or he's banged up injury-wise, maybe he opts into it. If not, at least we've had him for 7 years, 7 additional years at a pretty reasonable all-in number. So real excited that we got Bobby Witt Jr. signed. Definitely the player that we are going to be building this franchise around for the coming seasons. And as we get ready for spring training games, Eddie Leonard, who we picked up in the Rule 5 draft, we're going to try to get him trained up, see what he can do in right field. Going to see what Vinny Pasquantino can do in left field. and then Melvin Moreno, who we signed to a minor league contract with a major league option. Love his glove. He's played a lot of shortstop. Going to see if we can get to see exactly what he could become at second base a little bit by having him spend some time working on that in spring training. So going to be a busy few weeks here for the Royals as we try to get ready for the 2023 season and hopefully put ourselves in position to be competing for the playoffs this year. Well, we're about halfway through spring training, and Eddie Leonard has been playing some right field. Looks like he could be a 50 rated right fielder, so not optimal, but if it lets him potentially stick with the team, gives him a little more position versatility, won't be the worst thing in the world. Not surprisingly, Vinny Pasquantino is going to be lucky if he's a mediocre left fielder. Kind of knew that looking at his ratings, but with the potential bat that he has, I don't think it hurts us to have the optionality to try to hide him in left every once in a while. And then, not surprisingly, Melvin Moreno looks like he could be a exceptional second baseman and has quickly adapted to that position thus far through spring training. So training up a few players in spring training. We'll see. And we haven't had any major injuries yet. We'll see how the next couple weeks go as we get ready for the 2023 season. And of course, since I was recently talking about the lack of injuries during spring training, Brad Keller banged up with a strained abdominal, out for about a week. Not that serious, but Chris Bubich going to be out for 6 weeks with an elbow strain. So we will send Bubich to the injured list, and then most likely when he's finally healthy, we'll have him do a rehab assignment in AAA before he joins the team. Pitched and started 33 games for us last year, so although he's probably more our fourth or fifth starter at this point with some of the talent that we've brought on board, still going to be a loss for us, but I'm sure we can get through it. And we've got some difficult cuts to make here as we've finished up spring training. Still got 18 position players left on our roster, so we're going to need to cut 5 people. Training up Eddie Leonard, our Rule 5 acquisition in right field seems to have been the right move. Love his potential home run power. He can play a hopefully somewhat competent right field for us, but you'll see that in Matheny's lineup, he is in the lineup as our right fielder, both against righties and lefties. So we're going to give that bat a chance. Vinny Pasquantino didn't work out as well. You can see he's still only at 25 as far as his ability to play left field, and he's not going to be that great when he's out there. We want his bat around, but realistically, with the way he plays first and the way he plays left, he's probably an occasional DH and then a hopefully good bat for us off the bench. Going to probably send Jose Azocar and Kyle Isbell down to AAA. Emmanuel Rivera will probably be joining them, and then we're going to get into the real tough decisions to figure out who those last couple cuts off of the roster are going to be. Looking at our pitching staff, hasn't been too hard to get down to 14 players, but we're going to still send one more down. We know from earlier, Bubich is on the injured list, so that made it a little bit easier. Real tough decision, but we are going to send down Taylor Clark, who was actually an all-star for us last year, along with Bobby Witt Jr., had a real nice year for us with a 3.73 ERA, 110 ERA plus, 94 FIP minus. He still has option years left, and when you look at kind of his pitching profile, and you even look at how Matheny wants to use him, he's kind of our long reliever, potentially an emergency starting pitcher, but hopefully he'll be back up with us in the not too distant future, but we're going to send him down to AAA, and that gets the Pitching staff down to the 13 that it's going to be when we start the season. Jose Suarez, who we picked up in the trade with the Angels last year when he was injured, is going to be making his debut, heading our rotation. Brad Keller, hopefully the number 2 starter, if he's able to overcome that strained abdominal that's been impacting him for about a week now. Joe Ross, free agent acquisition, our number 3 starter. Hayden Wisniewski, who we picked up in the Salvador Perez trade from the Yankees, will be our 4th starter. And then Jonathan Bolin, a new addition to the team, coming up from the Texas League. Actually, I haven't paid that close attention to him. I just saw him slotted in for the starter. We are going to actually send Mr. Bolin down to AAA. He's never pitched above AAA yet. So we are going to actually demote him to AAA Omaha, and then that will allow us to bring back our all-star from last year to the major league roster, although we also had to send down Mackenzie Gord. We want to bring him up to potentially be a starter. Doesn't seem like he is as good in this game as he potentially is in real life. Still hasn't even made his major league debut yet. We picked him up with a trade with the Padres last November. I think we'll keep Gore down there so he can get some regular work, hopefully as a starter. And we've obviously got to fix this lineup, fix the roster up for Omaha also with 39 people on it. But at the very least, that will allow us to bring last year's All-Star Taylor Clark back up to the Major League roster as the season begins. And that will put Daniel Lynch, who was a pretty good starter for us last year, back into the rotation and give us a second lefty in the rotation. So hadn't been paying close attention, just assumed that what Matheny was doing made sense. Glad that we took a look. So Lynch will be back in the rotation as our 5th starter. And then the bullpen will be Clark, Dylan Coleman, Josh Dye, and Amir Garrett, lefties. Colin Snyder, another lefty, and Gabe Spire. Josh Stomont, and then Scott Barlow will be back as our closer. And looking at our roster, still have 15 players. We've got 4 players who aren't in the starting lineup, so who aren't in one of the starting lineups, either against right-handers, left-handers, or both, other than Cam Gallagher, who's our backup catcher. So Alex Bohm, the definition, at least according to our scout, of an average major league hitter. He can play 1st or 3rd for us. He still has 1 option year left. He could possibly end up getting sent down. Ryan Kreidler, also a pretty average major league bat, better defensively than Bohm. He has 2 option years left. But as I mentioned, plays more important defensive positions and is better defensively, which works in his favor. Melvin Moreno, who we signed to that minor league contract, but is going to be able to leave us in 30 days if he's not on the major league roster. Love the glove. Potentially not much of a bat. We do potentially have 30 days to have him down in AAA before we have to make a decision on him, so he may be a relatively easy one to send down, but then we'll have to decide whether we want to bring him back up in 30 days. And then Vinny Pasquantino, he's got no position defensively, even though we tried to train him up a little bit in left field. But he's got the best bat of any of those players, so we're going to keep Pasquantino on the team as a potential backup first baseman, left fielder, designated hitter. Going to send Moreno down to AAA. We'll have to decide what to do with him by the end of April, essentially, when he's had 30 days there. And then we are going to keep up Kreidler, and we're going to send Alex Bohm down to AAA. He's got the 1 option year left. So that gives us our 26-man roster. Batting order against righties, shortstop Nicky Lopez, catcher MJ Melendez, third baseman Bobby Witt Jr., First baseman Nick Pratto, DH Juan Yepes, new addition in free agency, left fielder Jock Peterson, Rule 5 addition in right field, Eddie's Leonard, Nico Horner at second base, and then Michael A. Taylor at center field for us. Against lefties, the only difference is that our new addition, Kiki Hernandez, is in at left field for us instead of the other new addition, Jock Peterson. And then other than that, the starters are actually all the same, just the batting order a little bit different. So kind of interesting. Our two big, I don't know if I'd call them big free agent acquisitions, but for the Royals, they were our big free agent acquisitions of Jock Peterson and Kiki Hernandez, and they will be splitting time in left field. But obviously having somebody like Kiki Hernandez on the team gives us a lot of defensive versatility since he can play just about anywhere. So I'm sure he will still be getting some at-bats for us. And with that, we are going to finish up this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Next time we have a new episode, going to be kicking off the 2023 season. Ownership's expectations are simply for us to play close to 500 ball after going 79 and 83 last year. Our goal is absolutely to have a winning record and hopefully get into the playoff hunt. With the 6 playoff teams in the American League, we've got a chance. Also, hopefully can improve our home runs this year. We did add those couple bats that I just talked about, so hopefully we'll hit a few more dingers than we did last year. And ownership will be upset with us for not paying Evan Longoria to come back at the age of 37 after we picked him up in a salary dump from the Giants before the trade deadline last season. So we will see how we do with our ownership goals. We will see how we do with our personal goals in the next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.